In Robo's high school, all the students, even seniors, were banned from relationships. She knew that they wanted the students to focus on their studies and not get hurt, but still, it's not like there weren't secret couples in her school. Furthermore, they also banned makeup, nail polish, hair dye, and even boys with long hair. If anyone was caught with a gadget anywhere on campus, they wouldn't get it back until the end of the school year.
Honeybits and Emoji once went for a walk to a local nature park when they came across a man whose eyes were almost completely black. They tried not to stare and kept walking. Honeybits noticed from the corner of her eye that he was following them, getting closer and closer. She grabbed Emoji's arm and yelled, "Run!" They hid in some trees until the man was out of sight. The next day, Emoji sent Honeybits a message telling her to turn on the news. It turns out the man following them was an escaped murderer who was caught only a few hours after they saw him in the park. They were very lucky to be alive. One day, Emoji moved in with an old guy who was renting out his apartment online. Emoji had spent years living with loud, messy young people, so he was looking forward to having a roommate who was quiet and tidy. Be careful what you wish for. At first things went okay, but then the old guy revealed his inner crazy. It turned out he was completely obsessed with cleaning and would lecture Emoji about it every single day. Emoji considers himself a tiny person, but this guy treated him like he was a total slob. Every time Emoji touched something like a drawer or a door handle, the old guy would yell and force him to wipe it down with a sterilized cloth. If Emoji took a shower or used the sink, his crazy roommate would make him wipe down every single droplet of water. Sometimes he'd wake Emoji in the middle of the night just to tell him about a speck of dirt he'd forgotten to clean. Emoji no longer lives there, but he's still traumatized by the memories. Sometimes he wakes in terror after dreaming about sponges and cleaning products.
Zoraganba was at the mall with a couple of his friends in the early 2000s. It was during Easter time, and the mall had a place where you could get your photo taken with the Easter Bunny, in quotes. When his friends saw this, they dared Zoraganba to wait in line and ask to have his picture taken, with the Easter Bunny pretending to punch him in the stomach. Zoraganba reached the front of the line and he requested to have his photo taken in the unusual pose. But unfortunately, the man in the bunny suit did not go for it and told him to buzz off. But later that year, they decided to try their luck again with Santa, and he was a lot more accommodating.
So back in high school, when the big end of year dance was announced, I immediately asked the most popular girl in high school to be my date. Surprisingly, she said yes. But towards the end of the year, I started getting close to another girl, a girl named City. City already had a date who was actually a close friend of mine. Both of us were just taking our dates as friends. About a week before the dance, I asked City to be my girlfriend, and she said yes. But there was still the big dance coming up, and we didn't want anything to be awkward. So we kept our relationship a secret from everyone else, so our dates wouldn't find out. On the night of the big dance, when the slow dance started playing for all the couples to dance to, I went up to my date and I asked her if she would like to dance. She just said, "No thanks, I don't like slow dances." And I saw my girlfriend wasn't asked yet. So I went up to her and I asked her and I got to have the slow dance with my secret girlfriend. After the dance, me and my friends went back to my place for a sleepover, but my date decided to go home instead. The next day, me and City had planned to go out on our first official date. So as we were all heading out, we said we were going to the shopping center. And City's date was all like, "I'll come too, I have to return my suit." So after we returned his suit, we all went to the food court to grab some food. And we sat him down and we said, we probably should tell you that me and City are dating. And it dawned on him that he had asked to tag along on our date. And he started freaking out. He was all like, "Is this a date? I'm sorry, I couldn't go if you like, I don't mind. I'm really sorry for imposing." You know, basically offering to leave us alone so we could spend private time together. And we just laughed. It wasn't that bad. It was hilarious seeing him freak out. And assuming that we were upset at him for some reason.
For the longest time, Emoji had a huge crush on his high school sweetheart, but he had no clue how to attract her. He eventually found out that she really liked Doctor Who. Emoji had never seen it before, so he decided to lock himself in his room and study it. For 2 months, he binge-watched it, foregoing sleep and ignoring his friends and family. Once he understood it well enough, he made her a foam TARDIS for Valentine's Day and asked her to be his doctor. Luckily, all his effort paid off, and they're still dating to this day.
Robo used to work in a casino restaurant as a hostess and cashier. One guy who came up to pay was very disgruntled. As usual, she asked if everything was okay. In a huff, he said, "No! Why don't you have any black people working here? All I see are whites! Robo assumed he was talking about the waitstaff. Well, sir, we do, but they might not be scheduled today. But I do know that we have at least 2 cooks who are here, said Robo. He got even more upset and said, So y'all keep them at the back so no one can see them, huh? The cooks in that particular restaurant started at $12.50 an hour, and the 2 that were working that day, who were black, were the head chef and kitchen manager. Robo just tried to change the subject and finished cashing him out. After she said, Have a nice day, he looked her dead in the eye and called her a racist. She just stood there in shock.
When Nixium first got his chorky named Gunner, he was only a few months old. Nixium and Gunner couldn't sleep at all one night. Since he had recently been sucked into the Doctor Who fandom, Nixium watched an episode from season 6 on his iPad. His crazy little jumping bean puppy sat on his lap and watched the episode with him. The dog was completely still. This was almost 3 years ago, and to this day, Gunner still paws at the big poster of the 11th Doctor that Nixium had on his wall. Gunner didn't care for David Tennant though.
When Melissa's aunt Lisa was dying of cancer, she was crying in the kitchen about it. Her 5-year-old sister came in the room and said, Lisa not died today, she died in the morning. The next morning, Melissa's mother woke her up to say that her aunt died at 6 a.m. Melissa asked her sister how she knew, and she said, Oh, the girl told me so.
Mimi went on a movie date with a guy in high school. He was the perfect gentleman, buying her a movie ticket, soda, and popcorn. After the movie, Mimi and her date left with smiles on their faces. The next day, she texted him and said that she enjoyed the date. He told Mimi that he didn't feel anything because he liked guys, specifically his friends. He also told her that he enjoyed wearing his sister's clothes. Mimi was cool about it, but he still complained about not having a girlfriend to his buddies, who never knew the crossdresser fantasized about being with them.
It was Melissa's birthday and Doopy decided to celebrate with a special birthday prank. She snuck into the school cafeteria, crept up behind Melissa, and pulled down her pants in front of everyone. Doopy was pointing and laughing until she realized the person she pantsed wasn't her good friend Melissa. It was some poor girl Doopy had never seen before. The girl just happened to be wearing the exact same outfit as Melissa. Everyone laughed and the girl almost cried. Doopy felt really bad about the mix-up. She passes this girl in the hallways from time to time. The girl just stares at Doopy with pure hatred in her eyes, waiting for the opportunity to get her revenge.
When Mimi gets nervous, she will usually say random words in Japanese and eat her hair. Unfortunately, it happened one time when she was in Japan. She was waiting in a crowded store to buy some things when a man approached her. He asked her where the closest train station was, and Mimi began freaking out because she didn't know Japanese that well. So, she said some random words and took out a piece of her hair and began to munch on it. The man looked at her with a confused and disgusted expression. He thanked her for her help, making Mimi's nervousness worse. When Sweet Commando was in 7th grade, he liked a girl who was on his mind all the time. His friend told him one day that his crush said whoever ate the most worms would be her boyfriend. Sweet Commando accepted the challenge. After 5 minutes, Sweet Commando had eaten 59 worms. After he was done, he asked her,
Does this mean we're boyfriend and girlfriend?
She said, Hell no! And then she kicked Sweet Commando in the nuts and walked away. 2 days later, she started dating his friend.
Pandora and her best friend Ramona have a habit of chewing on random stuff. Pandora makes these weird sounds when things are in her mouth, which her mom hates. One time, she was chewing on a button and took it out of her mouth for a minute or so because she had to leave the room. However, when Pandora came back, Ramona had this same button in her mouth. When Pandora told her that that button had been in her mouth, her friend panicked and went and washed her mouth out. One day, Pringle was waiting for his grandmother to pick him up from school. Although he was very smart in school, he had a habit of doing dumb things. So when a group of kids said they would pay him $5 to eat a bunch of rocks, Pringle took the dare. He started to put them in his mouth and swallow them one by one. Eventually, Pringle finished eating the rocks, but he never got his $5. But the good thing was that he didn't get sick.
Pandora was in the 7th grade when her friend Ramona asked who she had a crush on. After several days of asking, Pandora finally revealed who her crush was. She told Ramona to keep it a secret, and she agreed, until they had a big argument and decided to no longer be friends. To get back at Pandora, Ramona told her crush Pringle their secret, and he ended up asking her out. However, Pandora told him that she didn't want to go out with him because she didn't believe that he meant it. Later that day, while they were in math class, Pringle threw the papers they were passing around at her. When the teacher asked him what was wrong, he stood up and yelled,
"She won't go out with me!"
The teacher found it funny and said, "Ooh, denied." Pandora was teased about that for the rest of the school year, even earning the nickname Denier. Even when she went to college, Pringle called her Denier in one of her classes. Once again, it became her nickname. On Lady Bot's 7th birthday, her parents took her to a local fair that happened to have a petting zoo. She asked her dad for some money to buy the animals food so she could pet them while they ate. She entered the enclosure and came face to face with a huge camel. She went to feed it and suddenly all of her arm was in its mouth and it bit down really hard. She heard a snap and flipped out. Her dad pulled her away and took her straight to the hospital. It turned out that the camel broke her arm and dislocated her shoulder. She really hates camels now.
One day, Spinal Palm's teacher was collecting everyone's homework from the day before. The thing is, Spinal Palm had forgotten to do the assignment. Rather than taking the F, he lied to the teacher. When passing up the papers, Spinal Palm pretended to place his paper in the rest of the pile. Later on, when the teacher realized his paper was gone, she asked Spinal Palm if he did his homework. He said, "I did. I don't know why it would disappear." He had a reputation of always handing in assignments and homework on time and without any question. Also, he was probably the most dedicated, hardworking, and honest student in class. The teacher believed his story and started questioning the people in the row about trying to sabotage him by taking his work from the pile. She gave him an A despite no one admitting the false ordeal. My fiancé decided to propose to me on Christmas Day at Disneyland, and while that sounds like a dream come true, it was a nightmare. It was 10 times more crowded than usual. And the moment we walked in, the metal detector caught something in his jacket which made his plans very obvious. The people were really rude, the rides took hours to wait for, the food was expensive, and by the time the fireworks were supposed to start, I was sore, exhausted, and cold. Then, to top it all off, the fireworks were canceled due to high winds. And I knew that was the moment he wanted to propose, so he ended up settling on proposing to me behind the big Christmas tree in town square. And while it was an absolute disaster, I knew it wasn't his fault. And to be honest, it was way more memorable this way. Plus, it perfectly sums up our imperfect, dysfunctional relationship. Of course, I said yes.
Sid was about 15. He decided to prank call his dad from his friend's phone to make his friend think he was cool. When his dad answered the phone, Sid talked in a deep voice so he couldn't recognize him. He decided to go with the classic,
"Is your refrigerator running?"
However, after he asked this, his dad replied with,
"Yeah, and I got it after slapping your mom's ass on my way home."
Sid was insulted and shocked, obviously, and temporarily forgot who he was speaking to. He shouted back,
Yeah? Well, I had sex with your wife."
All he could do was sit there in silence until his dad hung up, realizing the mistake he made.
Back when I was in middle school, me and my friends would wait at the entrance to our neighborhood for the school bus. Now, beside our bus stop was a crabapple tree, so what we would do is we'd pick the tiny apples off the tree, and we'd put them in the street, and as cars would drive by, they would make the apples go and explode. It was just something we did to pass the time. Well, we did this for about a few weeks, and one day, this unmarked police car pulled up, and then another police car pulled up, and another, and all of us were arrested. We were taken up to the school. We were charged with apparently trying to cause an accident or something. The police officer said that we were throwing the apples at cars, which we were not doing, and all of us got suspended for 10 days. Now, the guy who reported us was apparently my neighbor who lived 2 houses over. And the only reason why he did is because apparently when he was trying to pull into the neighborhood, he was on a motorcycle and he almost slipped on one of the apples. So, yeah, it was pretty interesting being walked into school with a bunch of police officers surrounding me and my friends. That was kind of cool, I guess, and then having to go meet with the principal and all the staff and getting suspended. That was a was quite a time. I got in a lot of trouble with my parents.
One time during gym, Honeybits and her classmate were playing some freeze tag when a car drove into the parking lot. Two drunk guys got out, and one had a megaphone. The one with the megaphone started shouting at them to go screw themselves. Then the other guy started to run after them. He attempted to grab Honeybits, but the teacher punched him in the face, and everyone was told to go inside. The school was on lockdown for the last 2 hours. The guys were arrested for attempted kidnapping and in possession of meth.
I was browsing through some books at Chapters one day, looking at the bestsellers, the new releases, the usual. And I couldn't help but notice this one peculiar fellow. He didn't seem to be skimming the book or reading the back contents to decide if he wanted to buy it, but instead, he was sniffing the pages. I tried to look at him without him noticing me, but I must have caught his eye. He came over and asked me, "Can I help you?" And I said, No. Does that seem like an interesting book? And he said, "I wouldn't know. I just like to smell them. The pages, the plastic, the glue. It's what makes a book good." I can't completely disagree with this, but just based on the way he was sniffing it, it was a little strange.
Dolan worked at a gaming store and a customer tried to sell off her Pokemon Red game, except the cartridge wasn't Pokemon Red. It was a Game Boy Color cartridge painted red with a post-it note taped on the front with the words Pokemon written on it. Needless to say, she didn't get a refund. Plus, they had to kick her out because her goblin of a kid who looked like 1 or 2 was knocking over the merchandise.
There was this one time where I was being just a giant cunt in class, like usual. I was chewing the end of my pen, and unfortunately, this time, it happened to explode in my mouth, and ink went all over the roof of my mouth, all over my tongue. It was unsalvageable. And so my friend next to me was like, dude, get some water, now! And so I stood up, and I went to walk out of the classroom. The teacher, at the last second before I got out, she said, Dolan, hold up. Where are you going? I turned to her, and I was like, And she was like, no, I haven't given you clearance to leave the class yet. Sit back down. So me, with my fucking mouth filled with ink, probably dying from poisoning, I sat my ass back down in the chair, and I stared at her, like, this is how I die? 'Cause of this bitch? She won't let me leave the room to fucking wash my mouth out. So I sat there for, I think, about 5 minutes. At this point, I'm fucking worried now. I think I am going to die. I was like 9 or 10 at the time. This shit was real, alright? This is too much for me. And then eventually, once the teacher came closer, looked at me and kind of realized, oh shit, I better actually deal with this or I will be fired. She reluctantly said, okay, you've learnt your lesson now. You can leave the classroom and go wash your mouth out. And all I'm thinking in my head is, this bitch, right? This bitch, I'm gonna fucking hunt you down, right? After class, alright? I may cut your brakes. I can't even remember the teacher's name. Every time I think of her face, I just want to projectile vomit for a bit.
2 years ago, Mikhailum was sitting at home playing games on his phone when it started ringing. He didn't recognize the number, but answered it anyway. All he could hear was someone breathing into the phone. Mikhailum said,
"Hello?"
Whoever it was knew his name, and he could tell it was a prank call, so he asked,
"Who is this?"
The person replied with, "I fucked your mom," trying to use a deep voice. Mikhailum said,
"What are you talking about? My mom's dead."
This stopped him in his tracks. He started stuttering, What? No, she's not, Before he could finish replying, Mikhailum yelled,
"What the fuck is wrong with you, you insensitive piece of shit? Who the fuck are you? I'm about to get the police, you fucking bastard."
The man started to panic. He said, "Wait, what? No, With that, he hung up, and Mikhailum never found out who it was, but him and his mom laughed about it later.
The worst thing that ever happened to Doopy is while she was walking around the school with her friends, then all of a sudden, she accidentally tripped and sprained her ankle really bad. It hurt like hell. She then proceeded to say something like,
Ow! Fuck! Shit, it fucking hurts! Ow! Fuck! It's like fucking stubbing my fucking pinky toe!
and many more unsavory things. She got 3 weeks of detention and later noted that she guessed her instincts took over and her mind decided to bust out of her mouth.
One time, Sidious got very drunk downtown with his friends. Since he couldn't drive, he texted his girlfriend and she agreed to pick him up. While she was on her way, drunk Sidious literally forgot he'd arranged a ride with her and called himself a cab. When he got home, he passed out in bed without a second thought while his poor girlfriend drove around for an hour looking for him. When she got home, she was pissed off but relieved he was okay. Later that night, Sidious got up to go to the bathroom. His girlfriend followed him and found him standing in the bathroom doorway completely naked, peeing all over the floor. She yelled at him and Sidious had to mop up his own piss with a towel. To this day, he can't believe his girlfriend put up with so much of his shit. She even went on to marry him. What a woman.
Civil Spider went to a school that was extremely strict. It was so strict that if a student didn't have any demerits by the end of the school year, it was a celebrated achievement. But Civil Spider was a good student who followed every single rule to the letter. One day, back when he was in 6th grade, he brought a plastic knife with his lunch. Apparently, to the teachers and the security guards, the plastic knife was really a razor-sharp switchblade that he brought to inflict harm on others. So, Civil Spider was shoved to the ground, handcuffed, and expelled that same day. He got probation and was under house arrest for a full year, all because he wanted to cut his lunch.
Tolop deals with nerves by getting into fits of hysterical laughter. Tolop will laugh at practically anything, which can get him into some pretty awkward situations. One time Tolop was doing a super important math quiz. He was freaking out about failing, so when he got to question 69, he just completely lost it. He started laughing so hard that the entire class looked at him. His teacher was not impressed and asked Tolop to leave the room immediately. About 6 or 7 years ago, Ghost Host and his family, mom, dad, and older brother, were visiting Honolulu, Hawaii. Well, at one of the tourist stops that him and his family went to, Ghost Host's older brother noticed a World War II bunker up on the hill next to the shop. They asked their dad if they could go check it out, and he said they could. When Ghost Host and his brother made it to the bunker, the door had been ripped off and was inside. The bunker had a small room, then a hall, followed by a larger room with no lights, so they used his brother's iPhone screen as a light. There was a lot of trash, like fast food bags and shopping bags. In Honolulu, there are a lot of homeless people, but they usually sleep in tents at public parks. They began to explore until Ghost Host found the person that lived there. It looked like some tags, but when he came closer, the pile stood up. Before they could do anything, the man said, "Hello kids, do you want some sweets?" That's when Ghost Host noticed the shiny thing that he thought was a knife in his shirt pocket. Ghost Host and his brother ran away as fast as they could out of that bunker. Before they could get out of the bunker though, Ghost Host slipped on some of the trash and saw that the homeless man was running after them. They both made it out of the bunker safe, except for a bruised knee when Ghost Host fell. His brother then explained frantically to his parents what had happened. The police were called, and they arrested the man for attempted kidnapping and was sent away. One of the officers even told Ghost Host's father that the man also had a warrant for attempted rape. Ghost Host is about to graduate high school, and his brother is done with college, but they still have not forgotten that memory.
When she was younger, Melissa was laying down on her front porch watching YouTube with her earbuds in. Suddenly, a woman stopped her car and ran over to Melissa and started waving at her frantically. She couldn't hear because of her earphones, so she took them out and looked at the lady. The woman was yelling, "Hello, are you okay?" Melissa sat in shock and said, yeah, I'm just watching YouTube." She then said, "Oh, okay. I thought you might have been dead." She stood there for 3 more awkward minutes, then went back to her car and drove away. Weird.
I'm gonna tell you guys about something I said when I was a kid. When I was about 5, My dad took me for a car ride, and we stopped at the gas station to get gas. At the time, I didn't realize that the word gas had two meanings: the type that you fill your car with, gasoline, and the type that comes out of your bum, flatulence. So I told my dad, "Dad, why do you pay for gasoline? Why don't you just put your butt up against the tank and let it rip, and there you go, free gas?" I wish I were kidding about this, but true story.
One time, Helbin went to get a haircut. He very clearly told the barber what he wanted, and the barber went to work. When he was done, Helbin looked in the mirror and saw that his hairstyle was totally different to what he asked for. When he asked the barber what happened, the barber said he heard Helbin's request, but decided this different style would be better. Helbin asked him to fix it, but the barber screamed at him and told him to leave. Helbin had to wear a hat for the next couple of weeks. He never went to that barber shop again.